A young man was last seen walking down a poorly lit, windy, snowy road and has never been seen again. Hello, true crimeers. This is the case of Colin Gillis. Viewer discretion is advised. Real quick before we get started, of course, hello, my name is Mike. If you are new to the channel, I tell, again, 3 normally true crime stories a week, but recently I've been posting once every single weekday, so 5 videos a week. So if you're into true crime, please feel free to subscribe, give this video a like, that kind of thing. I also tell short form true crime stories over on TikTok, where I'm more known, have a few million followers over there. If you want to follow that, the link is in the link tree in the description of this video below, or the link pops up sometime at one point in the beginning of the video and also at the end. Check it out if you want to. You don't gotta, but you can if you wanna. Next, I do sell merch, like t-shirts and stuff, like shirts like this, hoodies, that kind of thing. So if you want to make a purchase of that, you can. The link is also in the link tree below. We do ship all over the entire world. And then lastly, if there's a case you want me to cover, just email me. My email is listed below. Just email me the name of the case or the individual, where it happened, when it happened. I'll add it to my list. I can't guarantee you when I'll cover that case. I have 5,800 plus names on there as of this video. I pick my cases at random, so it could be a very long time before I get to it. But at any rate, let's get into today's case, shall we? We shall. You got it. Okay, stop that. You got it. It's March of 2012, and it is Tupper Lake, New York. Winter is technically over, but it is still snowy everywhere. The temperatures outside are frigid. People are usually bundled up in their jackets, their thick pants and boots. I wouldn't know. I'm in Arizona. We don't know what that stuff is. Colin Gillis had recently turned 18. He was a high school graduate from Tupper Lake High School in Tupper Lake, New York. He graduated in 2011. Colin was a very, very intelligent young man. As a matter of fact, he ended up skipping a grade in high school, and he graduated a year before pretty much most of his friends did. He was attending State University at New York, which is in Brockport, New York. This is probably 5-6 hours away from Tupper Lake, and he had just enrolled at college, and everything was going great. Colin was one of 3 kids. He was the middle child to 3 boys. His brothers were very, very close with him. They were like the best of friends, this little trio. Being a year advanced in school, this didn't really ever stop Colin from not only his brothers being his close friends, but he had a large circle of friends outside of his brothers. He was very socially active. He loved to go to parties. He just loved to hang out with his friends in large groups. He also enjoyed playing football and basketball. He was athletically gifted. He was funny. He always made people laugh. He could also help educate people just based on his intelligence level. He was a pre-med student at college, and so he could always hold down a really intelligent conversation with his friends. At this point in 2012, Colin, who again is 18 years old, was away at college, so he wasn't living at home in Tupper Lake, but he was on spring break, and so in March of 2012, he would go back to Tupper Lake to stay with his family. His mom and dad were absolutely thrilled to have him back home. Brothers were excited to have him in the area. This also gave him a chance to catch up with a lot of his local friends who are not at the same college as him. It was the evening of March 11th, 2012. This was actually just a couple of weeks after Colin's birthday, but he had dinner that night with his family. They had a good conversation. They watched TV for a bit, and then Colin said, "Hey, I'm going to be heading out because I'm going to go hang out with some friends that I haven't seen in a while." Colin would head out in jeans and a short sleeve shirt, despite the temperature being in the low teens, very, very cold, but he was used to New York winters, and this never really bothered him. However, he did bring a backpack with him, which did have some warmer clothing in it, like a jacket, but when he left the house, he wasn't wearing that jacket. His parents would recall that Colin left the house sometime approximately at 8:30 p.m. with his backpack, and then he closed the door after saying goodbye to them, and they didn't know that would be the last time they would ever see their son again. Initially, Colin would just walk right down the street to a friend's house where a couple of friends were hanging out, and that was where his night began. From what it sounds like, the friends didn't really have any set agenda that night. It was just sort of kind of, we're going to roll with it and see how the night goes, and we're just going to go where the night takes us, you know? So they hung out at the friend's house down the street for a little bit, but then they decided to kind of move on to a party that was happening at another house on Lincoln Avenue. They were there at that house for a little bit of time before they said, all right, we heard about another party happening about 5 or 6 miles away, and so we're going to go there. This next party was on, and I hope I don't butcher this name, but Pascagoula Road, about 5 miles away from Lincoln Avenue. That party was going on because someone at that house was celebrating their 21st birthday. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of people there, a lot of drinking, a lot of young folk mingling. Colin and his friends that he was with that night didn't necessarily, they weren't like good, solid friends with anyone at that party. However, they were acquaintances, some of the people. They weren't technically invited to this party. It wasn't that kind of party either. It was, if you hear about it, come on by kind of thing. You know, Tupper Lake is this tiny, or at least back then, I'm not sure what it is now, but this tiny kind of community of about 6,000 or 7,000 people back in 2012. It's one of those things where if you weren't like close with someone, you at least knew people. So Colin, along with like 9 other friends, head to this party on Pascagoula Road. And at first, they're welcomed in. Everything seems to be going great. They're having a good time. They're laughing. They're joking. They're drinking despite not being of age. Don't drink underage, kids, is what I definitely should say. But according to some of Colin's friends, plus other people at this party, which would later tell the story to police, a fight had broke out at this party. And at first it was a verbal argument that turned into a physical altercation between a decently large amount of people. Some described this as an actual brawl, but eventually the brawl simmered down, and Colin's friends at that point said, listen, we don't really know people here very well, and so we're just going to leave because if more fights break out like this, we're all underage, and the cops are called, we're going to get in trouble. And so Colin's friends were like, all right, let's just leave. But Colin decided to, and no one really knows why, he decided he wanted to stay. He said, despite the brawl that happened, which he was not involved in that one, he was having a fun time. He was getting along with everyone, because again, that's the type of person that he was. If you didn't know him, he would become quick friends. His friends tried to get him to leave with them, but he just refused. He wouldn't do it. And so all 9 of the friends he entered the party with had left the house in their vehicles. At that point, Colin, who did not drive a vehicle, was sort of just kind of on his own. By the accounts of witnesses, Colin Gillis would leave on his own at around 1 o'clock in the morning. Then the party itself, according to partygoers, began to completely just dissipate around 1:30 a.m. According to people at the party, another fight had broken out that night. Some people say that Colin was involved in this fight. That is just what they say. It doesn't sound like anyone can really truly corroborate that story, but enough people said that he had something to do with it. They just don't know what. So Colin was visually seen by many people walking out of the house, and then he was seen walking north up Pascagoula Road, and then that road would then lead to, I guess, Route 3, New York Route 3. Pascagoula Road is at least then, a very dark, poorly lit, windy road. It's snowing. It's the middle of the night. It's dark, and Colin was seen leaving the house, by the way, still in a short sleeve shirt. He has his backpack over him, but he did not have on any cold weather clothing. This is a road with no sidewalks. This is a road that didn't really have any kind of like bike paths or anything like that. And the speed limit around this road was about 55 miles per hour. But there was not a lot of traffic on this road typically, especially at 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. It's dead. But walking down this road at 1 o'clock in the morning is going to be difficult because it's a very windy path and it's pitch dark. And so it's really hard to see. Most of the houses are kind of obscured from the road by trees. So when he got to Route 3, have turned right, because that would have been the direction of his home. But they know for a fact that he did not turn right, he actually turned left. This was going to be taking him from the Tupper Lake area out to a town called Piercefield. Route 3 is a little bit more, has more traffic than the other road does, but again, at this time of night, it's still not going to be a ton of cars. And still, it's a dark road that's poorly lit. This is not a road that people really ever would see people just walking down. It would be unusual to see someone walking. But at 1:40 a.m., a pedestrian who was his vehicle, in fact, did see someone walking down this road, Route 3, at that time of night. This was a man named Rich Rosentretter, who I guess was the editor of Lake Placid News at that time. He had been in his car because he was on an 80-mile trip because he had been picking up his mom from a different location and bringing her back to Tupper Lake. And that's when he saw someone walking down the road. And he confirms that this young man, he described him as, was walking towards Piercefield. So that's how they know Colin was there, based on the description the man gave. He also described this man as having a backpack on and not having on a jacket. And again, this was odd to the man driving because it's freezing cold outside. Why aren't you wearing a jacket? The witness, for a moment, thought about stopping and asking if this young man needed a ride or needed help, but he thought otherwise because he had his elderly mom in the car with him. It was late at night, 1:40 in the morning. This is a stranger. They don't know if this could be a violent person. So instead, what the man does is he drives, I think, 3 or 4 miles more down the road to a police station where he lets police know that there was this young guy walking on the side of the road. You might want to check it out. They do send a patrol car out on that area, and by the time they get there, there is no young man seen walking, so they leave it. Then another young man named Austin was in a car with his cousin Jordan, and they say that around 1:30 a.m. they also saw Colin walking. Austin and Jordan were in their car driving towards Piercefield, the direction that Colin was walking. These are the people who actually witnessed Colin Gillis turning onto Route 3 from Pascagoula Road. They witnessed him actually making that left turn walking. Austin, who's driving the car, stops the car and says, "Hey, do you need a ride?" And Colin says, "No, I have a ride on the way. I've a friend of mine." And so Austin just drives on. Once Austin dropped his cousin off at their destination, Austin would be driving back the opposite direction. And once again, he saw Colin Gillis. And again, he asked him, "Do you need a ride?" And I guess this time he spotted Colin at Bruce Richards Logging Company, or near it. This is roughly 1,000 feet from the Pascagoula Road Route 3 split or cross street or whatever, which Austin found unusual because he had been some time, and by the time he drove back the opposite direction, it was unusual that Colin hadn't gotten very far from where he first saw him. Nobody actually knows if Colin Gillis was actually waiting for a friend to pick him up or if he was just sketchy about getting into a car with someone he didn't know, because apparently the cell phone service in that area was horrific. It was very difficult to make calls, but no one would ever come forward to state that, yeah, I was the person Colin was waiting for. They couldn't find any proof or evidence that Colin was in fact waiting for someone. If he called someone, it wasn't in any records. He also, based on the 9 friends he was with earlier that night, they all said that there was no arrangement for any of them to come back and pick Colin up. It was basically once they left, Colin was on his own. But anyway, as Austin drives away, that's essentially the last time anyone sees Colin. And based on the description that would later go out, based on the backpack, what he looked like, what he was wearing, they knew that this was Colin Gillis that was seen. He did not appear to be in any kind of distress. He doesn't seem like he was trying to run away or avoid someone or something. Yeah, he seemed normal. He was supposed to be home that night, and when he didn't come home that night, his parents were like, okay, he probably just fell asleep at a friend's house, he'll be back tomorrow. But then tomorrow comes and goes, Colin still isn't there. And so his parents are like, okay. They start calling his friends and knocking on the doors of his friends, like, is Colin here? And they're like, no, we haven't seen him since the party. And that's where like, okay, we're officially concerned, we're calling police. And that's what they do. They report him missing. Monday morning, the New York State Police, the Tupper Lake Police are all involved. They also have the Department of Environmental Conservation helping them. Plus, they had the friends of Colin, they had his family, and a whole bunch of volunteers. They were out searching, and they were doing very thorough grid searches, and they didn't miss a square inch. Like, they were really looking for him. They brought in, like, helicopters, and they were searching by air. And keep in mind, this is still, it's very snowy. Everything's covered in snow at this time. And so if someone is going to be you're going to find maybe like a body, for example, and if that body hasn't been covered by snow, it should be easy to spot in the white snow. But they did not find anything, any trace of him. On that Monday afternoon, as the search is going on, police do hold a press conference to say they have found 2 items that they believe belong to Colin. One of them was his driver's license. The other one would not be revealed as to what it actually was until a couple of years later. I guess it was a tobacco pipe that Colin had. By Tuesday, they had begun searching the Raquette River and Raquette Pond, or Racket Pond. Did I say that right? I probably butchered that. They also searched the Piercefield Flow. They really did search like bodies of water that he could have possibly ended up in. They searched them. And again, they came up with nothing. Not his backpack, not clothing, and obviously not him. They dredged the waters. They really combed through every square inch. Nothing. It is known that Colin was not wearing his jacket, and the temperature was in the teens, so it was freezing cold. And so there was always that theory that kind of lingered of maybe he just ended up freezing to death. He died from the weather, right? But you would find him still. Like, if he is now just dead somewhere in this area, even after the snow has melted, especially after the snow was melted, you'd think you'd find him. They didn't. There was never a single trace of him, body-wise, found. I mean, could animals have gotten to him? I guess in this area there were, obviously there's wildlife, but not wildlife that would completely eviscerate a human body. You would find some trace of him somewhere. That wasn't the case. There was also a theory that, well, maybe Colin was involved in a hit and run. This was a very dark road, like I said. There wasn't much going on. The speed limit was 55 miles per hour, which is fast enough that if you're going to be hit by someone, it's going to do some damage, probably even kill you. But the road, just based on their observations after the fact, that road was just, you had like 1 or 2 cars on the road at any given point. Like, it was just, there was no one on it. However, one of the witnesses who said that while they're in their car, when they spotted Colin, one of those witnesses said they came very close to accidentally hitting him because he kind of just came out of nowhere in terms of like the darkness, because it was very dark. So it is possible that somebody hit him and they didn't want to get caught for killing someone, so they maybe picked up his body and moved him somewhere, and God only knows where that would be. But you'd think you would find some blood or any kind of evidence of this hit and run. They didn't. There was no blood ever found. There was no like shoe found that was his shoes. There actually was a shoe found that they thought was his, but it wasn't. But, there wasn't like anything like that. No broken pieces of car or anything. No skid marks. Nothing to indicate he had been hit. Is it still possible? Absolutely. But they couldn't say for certain that's what happened. Within a week, they are setting up checkpoints, and they're basically stopping every car that comes by. They're handing out flyers with Colin Gillis's information on it, asking if anyone had been driving on that road that night. And that's where police got the witness accounts from 2 different people that I mentioned about seeing Colin, and that's how they knew where he would have been walking. After about 2 weeks, this intense search for Colin began to sort of slowly calm down, and they were no longer doing these big group grid searches. This was more now of, well, we can't find him. We haven't found any indications of what happened to him. We've searched everywhere, and we're at a loss. So at this point, they were only going to search based on tips or anything like that. And now they were conducting more of this like an investigation on the side. And that's when they were really diving into the party scenario. And that's how they found out that Colin was possibly involved in the second fight that broke out at the party, but no one could really say for certain, again, if he was, but there was a possibility he was. And so they were trying to interview as many people as possible to see if, well, did anyone target Colin at the party for some reason? And did somebody maybe find Colin walking on the side of the road that was involved in that fight and said, oh, there's one of those, people I fought with, and then did something to him? It would have had to have happened after the two other witnesses saw him and saw Colin looking normal and calm. So it could have happened after 1:40 a.m. That's another person, because the party they did say broke up around 1:30. So this would line up with maybe one of those people at the party leaving around 1:30 to 1:40, finding Colin on the road and doing something to him. But who that person was, they don't know. Is that even what happened? They don't know. Could Colin have been met by just a complete random stranger on this dark road? Also a possibility. Someone may have seen this young kid walking and decided, you know what, I'm going to kidnap him and I'm going to kill him, or whatever the case may be. It really does sound like Colin was walking on that road and he got into a vehicle. That's the vibe. That's the what it looks like, because of the fact that they have not found him anywhere. And if he died by cold weather, he would have been found. It just seems like someone picked him up, whether it was someone he knew and got in willingly, or it was a random encounter that took him. That just seems like what may have been what happened. But again, I can't say that for certain. That's just theory. Over the years, police have gotten more tips, and there was a point, I think somewhat kind of recently, where they were given tips about a certain location, and so they took like a backhoe there and some other equipment, and they begun digging. They actually dug up on a property with the intent of they're going to find Colin. They dug and they dug and they dug, but there was nothing. There are no remains, no trace of him found. It was empty, nothing. Was Colin severely intoxicated? That's a possibility, but no one can really say for certain if he was or not. No one really gave that opinion. There's also that thought that maybe someone drugged him, and that's why he walked down the wrong side of the road. He may have been disoriented, but then what happened after that? If you look at that, like maybe he was severely intoxicated and he was possibly drugged by someone who did that, and why, and then why let him go from the party if you were planning on doing something bad. Maybe they were just doing a prank. Who knows? But that would explain why he walked down the wrong direction, because he was supposed to walk right, but he turned left instead. But the people that saw him on the road didn't say he seemed to be out of sorts or disoriented. He seemed just like he was just normally walking. And when one of them talked to him, he wasn't slurring his speech or anything, and he seemed normal. And that might play into a big portion of what happened to him. Why did he walk down that path? Why did he walk the wrong direction? But the thing is there's a million answers to that question. And what's the right answer? Was it disorientation? Was he led down that path? Did he just accidentally do it, like thinking he was walking in a certain direction, Was he actually meeting someone? Again, no one has ever come forward to state that they were the person he was supposed to be meeting, or they were the person supposed to be picking him up. There's just a lot of possibilities here, and they don't know what the actual one is. And so now this small community is filled with rumors about what may have happened to him. He was killed by someone, he was kidnapped, or he was drunk and fell in the snow and died. Maybe he fell in a body of water, but they just haven't been able to find him yet. But the fact they have found absolutely nothing to say, to even point them in the right direction, that's where it stands. My gut tells me, just based on the fact they haven't found him, is that foul play was involved. I don't know why. It's just, that's what is, I guess, based on me telling so many stories over the years, that's just the gut feeling I have. But who it is, your guess is as good as mine. 18-year-old Colin Gillis was last seen on the night of March 11th, 2012, leaving a party. Or I guess the morning of March 12th. Colin Gillis has blonde hair, blue eyes. He was 6'1", weighed around 170 pounds. Colin had a scar on his left shoulder. He was last seen wearing a men's size medium short-sleeved American Eagle V-neck shirt with black stripes, size 32 blue boot cut Levi jeans, and a size 10 red high-top Nike Air sneakers. He was carrying an orange LL Bean backpack containing a reversible black and red LL Bean coat. There is currently a $25,000 reward being offered for any information that helps lead to finding Colin Gillis or finding people or persons who may have done something to him. Somebody somewhere out there has got to know the truth, and perhaps that someone is you. If you have information about the disappearance of 18-year-old Colin Gillis, please contact the New York State Police at 518-897-2000. You can report your information anonymously. You do not have to say who you are. You just have to say what you know. Colin Gillis's brothers, his parents, his friends, they all deserve to have him back. They deserve to lay him to rest. If this wasn't an accident, if this was something that just happened to him on his own, hopefully they can find him. But if somebody did something to him, and somebody took him or killed him and buried him, you've got to come forward to say what you know. His family deserves that. And Colin Gillis should get the justice, if that is the case, that he rightfully deserves. But that is it for this case. True crime, a rooney dooney dingleberry dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, please subscribe, give this video a like so more people can see it, because it just takes that one person seeing this video or any video about Colin, not just mine, anyone's, to get the answers. So you never know. So yeah, please follow me over on TikTok if you so choose. Check out the merch store if you want to. And yeah, that's it. That is it for this video. So I will say goodbye. So long. Off Wiener's End. Do I have wiener on the goodbye. So long. Farewell. Off Wiener's End. Why is the word off Wiener's End goodbye? Oh, I'm saying it completely wrong. That's what it is. Well, I don't speak whatever language, including English. Yep. Okay. Well, failed once again to say goodbye properly. Haha. What? Okay, how do I put my hand? I don't know what to do with my hands. Sayonara, suck faces. Nope.